L'chaim, everyone. A guten Erev Shabbos. And as we stand on Rosh Chodesh Sivan, the day when the Jewish people arrived at Har Sinai, and Vayichan Shom Yisrael Neged Har, the entire Jewish people camped by the mountain Ki Ish Echad, as one man, Belev Echad, with one heart. And we're told that Hashem said that since all the other times that the Jews traveled, there was machlokes, there were complaints, there was division, and this time they came as one man with one heart. Hashem said then, Kivan she'ahavu banai es hashalom v'sanu es hamachlokes, being that my children love peace and they hate division and argument, Higia eis she'etin lem teirasi, the time has arrived for me to give the Torah. Now that we've come to this time, we wish everyone, and we wish each other, and we wish ourselves Kabbalah Torah b'Simcha and Pnimiyus, that we should receive the Torah as the words of the Frierdiker Rebbe, that the Rebbe always quoted joyfully and internally. What's the meaning of these words? It starts off with Simcha. I heard a story about Rabbi Michal Teitelbaum, the very famous Mesirus Nefesh Chassid. It was in the Yuds in the 1920s in New York. And at that time, Lubavitch, which was still a fledgling organization in a sense, had just come not that long before from the persecutions of the Soviet Union, from the persecutions of Nazi Europe, and people wanted to take it easy and to be able to live normally, to be able to be part of the Jewish community. Lubavitch had a school, or a network of schools, that was established by the Frierdiker Rebbe, by the Nasi Adir of that generation, that was under his Nesius, the United Lubavitch Yeshivas. This was the schools that represented Lubavitch. This was, if we can call it, the proper schools of the establishment. And this was the place where everyone went and where everyone was able to get a proper chinuch, a proper Jewish education, but together with that, be able to have also the proper secular education. The Rebbe at that time spoke Shabbos after Shabbos about the concept of chinuch al taras HaKodesh. That although when the Frierdiker Rebbe established the schools, since it had to also attract children who wouldn't come if there wasn't the secular, and give them the proper Jewish education, but nevertheless, the Rebbe demanded and spoke about it again and again, the idea of establishing also a chinuch, an educational school, which will be al taras HaKodesh, purely only in the holy limudei kodesh, the holy studies. At that time, this chassid, Michal Teitelbaum, decided to take action. And despite the fact that everyone looked at him like he's crazy, because how do you dare start a yeshiva when there is already a yeshiva which was established by the Nasi Adar? And yet the Rebbe wants something, and he went ahead and he established the Holy Torah schools, which started off as a very small institution. And eventually he got issues not only from other chassidim who had complaints against him, but the government began to give issues. This is illegal. You're not allowed to start an educational institution where there's no secular studies. That's considered to be a lack of education. You're not educating the children, and the government wanted to close it down. So there was a meeting that the government official, the government inspector was going to have with him, and he wrote to the Rebbe, what should I do? And the Rebbe said the way to do it is be b'simcha. Simcha mimatekes adinim, joy sweetens all judgments, should be b'simcha. Reb Michal, a Russian chassid, took it in a very literal sense, and he said l'chaim in the morning before he was supposed to meet with the government official. And when the government official came to him, he started shouting at him. And he says, I'm coming from communist Russia, and even they say America is a free country, even the communists are not as bad as this. Here I take a bunch of children who don't have who to educate them, and I'm teaching them and I'm educating them, and not only you're not supporting me, but you want to close this school down. The inspector was very nispal from Reb Michal, and he arranged and he put an application that not only they shouldn't put the school down, but the school should actually receive support. What's the idea of it? It's not the cup of mashke, but rather the idea of simcha means joy opens up new avenues. When a person is zukvetcht, when a person is depressed, that comes from the fact that there's a lack of faith in Hashem, that he thinks that everything has to follow whatever the world says. But when a person goes out of his kalim, he goes out of his limitations, and he has that idea of simcha, joy comes from the realization that there's nothing but Hashem. Hashem runs the world and nothing can stand in the way. And that's why Kabbalah Satayra has to be b'simcha, because simcha, when we're receiving the Torah, we're beginning our path according to the way the Torah teaches us, then there's obviously going to be obstacles in the way. And the way to overcome that is in the beginning, when we receive the Torah, it's in a joyful manner that we know we're connected to Hashem and there's nothing that stands in the way. And then there's Pnimiyus. There's a famous story of a chassid from Russia who was walking, and it was freezing cold, something like we have here in South Africa now, probably a bit colder. And he's walking along the highway, and a wagon stops and offers him a ride. The guy is sitting, it's a wagon driver sitting in the front, like a truck driver nowadays. And he has in the back of the wagon, there's barrels and barrels of mashke. So the chassid sits there between the barrels, but it's an open wagon and he's freezing. And finally he asks permission from the one who's driving the wagon, can I take a little bit of mashke? And he says, sure. And he takes a bit of mashke inside, and suddenly he's warm. And the chassid said, when you're sitting, you can be surrounded with the mashke. It's all around you, but it doesn't necessarily affect you. But when you take one drop inside you, that changes, that makes you warm. And again, the idea isn't the mashke. The idea is the concept that Pnimiyus, when we take the Torah, b'simcha, with joy, knowing that there's nothing but Hashem. But we also internalize that. We make it real to the extent that it becomes part of my life. The Torah becomes part of my life. I take it in. I don't just have it and study it, but I learn it, and I think about it, and I act upon it. And in that way, that's the way a person can take the Torah and make the Torah real. There's a story of a group of Chassidim that came, I think it was 1960, Tavshin Chaf. They came to the Rebbe. There was a charter plane. Maybe it wasn't that. It was a group of guests that came on an airplane. They were from Eretz Yisrael, and their plane back was on Motzei Shabbos. The Rebbe made a surprise Farbrengen at the end of Tishrei, a Tzeichem L'Shalom for the guests. And the Farbrengen continued into Motzei Shabbos. The Rebbe noticed they're looking at the clock. They're getting nervous. And the Rebbe said, that if we were able to take what it says in Chassidus and make it real, then we would understand that at the moment Hashem recreates the world every second. Right now, the suitcases don't exist. The plane tickets don't exist. The airport doesn't exist. The airplanes don't exist. After Shabbos, when it comes time for them to be necessary, Hashem will then create them. At the moment, I'm here now and nothing else exists. And that's the meaning of Kabbalah Satira b'Simcha v'Pnimiyus. And that Simcha and Pnimiyus that brings out the essence of a Jew, of who I am and what I'm all about. That's the concept of this week's Parsha. Right before Shavuos, we read about counting the Jewish people. In counting, the greatest person is not more than one. Moshe Rabbeinu is not counted as more than one. And the simplest Jew, the lowliest Jew, is not counted as less than one. Because that one is not because of what you do, it's because of the essence of who and what we're all about. And as a result of that essence, that's what brings the ultimate preparation for receiving the Torah, which is Ki'ish Echad, Belev Echad. We're all one, we're all united because we bring that reality into the truth. I can know it, I can understand it, and the first thing is the Simcha, to go out of my limitations, and secondly, to make it real, Pnimiyus, to bring it and make it essential and make it internalized, make it part of us. That's exactly what the Pirkei Avos, right before the Chazal established that we should read a chapter of Pirkei Avos every Shabbos before Shavuos. And on the final Shabbos before Shavuos, the 6th chapter, which is called Kinyan HaTorah, the way to acquire Torah. We don't just learn Torah. We don't only follow what the Torah says, but we acquire it, we make it ours. We think about it, we make what we learn in Torah ours. And this is in fact the most important thing in our time, because just as we say Kabbalah Satorah b'Simcha v'Pnimiyus, more importantly in our time, which that's our job and our mission, our single mission, is Kabbalah's Pnei Mashiach Tzidkeinu, to greet Mashiach, and that also has to be b'Simcha v'Pnimiyus. Because when it's with Simcha, which that's what brings the Geula, because Simcha is my enabling myself to not live in a Galus state, in a Tzukvetchte Galus state, in a state where I feel condensed, where I feel Galus, but rather when we open up the Galus, when I feel Simcha, joy, which enables me to feel the reality of Hashem and to internalize that, because that's the meaning of Kabbalah's Pnei Mashiach Tzidkeinu. The reality of Mashiach is here, we receive it, we internalize it, we make it part of us. And that's specifically through Achdus, through unity of the Jewish people and Avas Yisrael, to us all uniting together. And as a result, we'll definitely merit that now, even before Shabbos, which this Shabbos is a time when everyone's definitely going to make Farbrengens, and especially Shabbos afternoon, Farbrengens that unite us all together, in which everyone says L'chaim to one another, and everyone speaks about the ideas of Mashiach and of Avas Yisrael. Even before we enter into the Shabbos that talks about counting the Jewish people, we'll already have the Minyan HaAsiri, the 10th count. The coming of Mashiach will take us all and unite us all together in the simple sense. In the Holy Land, in Eretz HaKodesh, in Yerushalayim HaKodesh, in the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi. And that, as we always say, Chassidus Farbrengen brings all the brachas, that if Chas v'Shalom there's any seconds left, and not more than seconds, and even that we shouldn't have, until the coming of Mashiach. At that time, Hashem gives only brachas to every single Jew, wherever they may be. Bani Chayil Mezeinim B'chulam Revicha, and especially to the Yidden that it's HaKodesh, that Hashem gives only brachis from His open and revealed blessings from Yadei Amleya Psucha Akdosha Varchava. And we all come together already today on Erev Shabbos Parshas Bamidbar to Yerushalayim HaKodesh, where we all bring the ultimate Achdus Farbrengen in the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi immediately now. A good Shabbos and Kabbalah Satorah b'Simcha u'v'Pnimiyus.